What is up, everybody? I'm back here with Sleepin' Comics. You know what? You got to be probably my favorite or my top three favorites in all of the YouTube VV community, man. I mean, I just think your content is, so good. You're a real life kind of expert on this stuff. You're a collector, you're an entrepreneur. You just have all the different, things in a basket that people would want. And, I get to interview today. So what's up, brother?
Thanks for having me on again 2 times. Now I have to get some sort of. There can't be that many people that have been on here more than maybe Silicon, a couple others. So
Yeah.
I'm humbled. Thanks so much. But it's you have such a great channel. So right back at you, and let's it'll be fun to talk today.
I totally agree, man. No, and it's really cool to get this going again because there's sentiments a little low in the community, but I think you and I are still pretty optimistic, as cautiously as that may sound, but I feel pretty good about everything.
Yeah. I guess you got to speak with your wallet. I still have been buying, for better or worse, right? But and there's some interesting things that they're dropping, obviously, on the comic side and on the collectible side. So I guess the big one this week is, well, a lot of good ones this week. ASM 6 was just dropped, the first appearance of Lizard. Obviously, we saw
Mhm.
Banshee was an X-Men, but then, of course, this weekend there is Sesame Street. And
Yeah.
then the one that my daughter, I think, would be most interested in is Moana. So, yeah, a lot of great stuff.
It's true. We're almost so spoiled because this stuff just drops so, routinely. And it's funny because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave VV," but every time there's a good drop, they come back because they know if they win the lotto, they're gonna get paid, you know?
It's totally true. And I do think, and we've discussed this many times, but I think a lot of the people like the stuff. I mean, it's fun to have the stuff. And, I said, I'm gonna buy the Moana one probably and take some pictures with my daughter. And, it'll be fun.
I totally agree, man. And one thing that's insane now is because we're in this bear market, they're dropping such scarce edition sizes, like 113 for the FA of the Lizard. Like, what does that even mean? Like, that's crazy compared. Like, I thought 250 would be the lowest, but 113 is almost like a standard now. So, what's
Yeah.
your take on that?
Well, the SR 5,000 total, 3,000 common. 3,000 commons is actually really interesting too. Like that's the one that
True.
I've been really focused on, but yeah, just crazy. Obviously they're matching and they know way more numbers than we do in terms of understanding how many real active users, that's a weird word, core users, dedicated users. I don't even know what the right word is because, as you know, it kind of got burned by that active user term about a year ago in terms of how many people they thought. I think they said something like 2 to 3 million, but really it was, that might have been the people who made accounts, but really the amount of people that seemed to be going for drops and other things probably was substantial about a year ago. Maybe, I don't know, 50,000, 100,000. But clearly now, as we're in the dead of winter, I mean, if you look at some of the other data with Vivi Fox and some of the other people I talk about on my channel, I know all these people as well. It seems like it's around, if I had to guess, 5,000 kind of core users that are really in there, buying stuff on a day-to-day basis. And so then when they drop a comic like the FA Lizard and they put the the amount at 5,000, it kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah. I think it's like, if we do see that mass adoption again in the future with Vivi, then like what a gift it is right now to be receiving these edition sizes. But my question to you, which I think is really interesting, is like a lot of the Grail comics in the physical world are a lot of the times are based off scarcity just because they're old and you can't get them or you can't get a high grade. And now with the digital aspect of this, these comics that maybe aren't as popular in the physical world, but now are extremely scarce in the blockchain, such as like ASM 252, could be like extremely sought after long term because there's just fewer of them. Is that like a wise interpretation of that situation, or do you think differently of that?
No, it's of course it's all speculation, right?
Yeah.
But so I mean, I do think it has to start with um demand, right? Popularity, however you want to call it. So when you're talking about Spider-Man, that's a whole nother level of popularity. It's kind of like I said in my videos a lot. It's like Mickey Mouse and Disney. That's a whole nother game when you're into that world than any other IP almost, right? There's these special ones that people are just, kind of cuckoo over, right? And Spider-Man and some of these kind of core Marvel users fall into that category. But you're right. when it's so scarce, and maybe, because it's such a new arena, we're always trying to look back at the physical and trying to make that connection. But
Mhm.
once I think the metaverse and other things kind of bloom into what we think they're going to be, it will be its own thing. It's going to be something different. It'll obviously, have undertones and reflect the past of what these things were physically. But I think new things can happen.
Mhm.
I think there's ASM 252, which is, I think, in its own class because of that. It's only 1,000 mints for people that don't know. And the SR, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, there's only 40,
40. Yeah.
but then they held back some, right? So there might be only 35 publicly available or something like that.
Right. It's something stupid. I think it could even be in the 20s potentially. So yeah.
So it's such a, and I know you talk about this. It's great. And the term you use is social capital, I think, is a term you use a
Yeah.
lot, which is a great, so it's a flax, whatever you want to talk about that, but it's legit. Like, that is the legit thing.
Right. Right. And so this is where, I get interested because I'm like, some of this stuff that people are passing up now, like giant size X-Men comic #1 or like Thor, I'm like, okay, if that would have dropped in the bull market, like what would have the numbers been then? But people are overlooking it now because they don't see it running. So they're like, oh, well, clearly nobody cares about it. But I'm like, when we get back all these core users, or if we do have mass adoption, then like all of a sudden it can take a life of its own, because right now they're just listening to the same people that have been here, and there's not enough new voices coming in to be like, hey, like let's look at all of these things objectively across the board. And a lot of these grails that were grails in the bull, there may be more grails, or maybe they're even shifted now where it's not the same things that people should be looking for, but just because of the sheer scarcity element. Like, you've got Vader, an amazing collectible, but when you think about like the uncommon, common, and ultra rare variants, you're looking at like 18,000 plus mints. So how valuable can it be unless you got the 1977 as an example? So you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot to unpack, but
The problem is that it's the fear. It's flat out fear, and
yeah.
it's an unknown. We always say FUD, right? But it literally, that's what it is, because it's, oh my, is this thing actually going to happen, or is it Beanie Babies? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's this constant fear of maybe Vivi's not going to make it. Maybe blockchain's not going to make it. Maybe Marvel decides not to do this anymore and they're only making physical comics. Like, it's just, it is fear. And so
Mhm.
I think that, and then of course it's overcoming what collectors want to collect. Currently, as we know, there's probably, like I just said, 5,000 core people. Um, can we attract more in the future? And so it's just the fear of the unknown. It just hurts people, because if they knew, right? If you knew, because it's not even going to take. I know you've talked about this on your channel some too, because I watch your videos, which is, it doesn't take 1 million users to make this thing really go crazy.
Right.
If we even got, we're talking about core users, we have 5,000. If we even went back to 10 or 20,000 core users, all of these numbers would get really, really incredible. And when you're talking about some of these, like you just said, that only have 10,000 or 5,000 mints total, I'm not even talking about the SRs that are going to be non-existent.
Right.
And it's hard for people to extrapolate forward. It just is. And I think, and maybe it's okay if I always say it's okay also to take a break. If you don't want to, if you're not ready to sit through the winter and it's just too much, there's a lot of other activities to do, and you probably should go do those. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Right. And it's interesting because somebody else said this to me too, is like, in the bull cycle, right? When you're seeing something go up, like, I think it was Danny DeBoy, it's like, it feels good, right? To buy something, because the hype is there and you're buying it. It seems like you're buying in the green when you're on the top of the roller coaster ride. Now we've come down. I mean, obviously it's exceptionally volatile, but like now you're, put it this way, closing in, not financial advice, on the bottom, in my opinion, but it's like, if you're buying something at 100,000 and it recedes to 5, but if you buy something at 5,000, it recedes to 1,000, then like your loss for that is a lot smaller. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So for what I do, and I talk, I've talked about this, I've talked about this on my channel too, is you have to, some way, shape, or form, come up with two things when you're buying things. And once again, not financial advice, and not buying things that you just want to keep because you love them. Like, I bought a Silver Surfer because I love it. I'm not selling that. You know what I mean? I'm talking about, I am intending to flip this thing at some point in time. There's
Right.
two things you have to determine, and that is a target price and a duration. Is it 5 years? Is it 2 months? and what is going to get it there. Like legitimately, don't just make up crazy stuff like, I think, a million people are going to come in. No. So when you look at, let's just take one for fun. Okay. Cause I did the calculations, right? Is, ASM 6 Lizard, the first appearance of Lizard, there's 5,000 of them. Okay. So when you look at now, I get it. Not a lot of people are into the Lizard. We saw him in the last Spider-Man movie, but he's not like he's even the biggest Sinister Six guy, or he's not even, it's not like a lot, but it's still a top 10 Spider-Man book. I do believe people are going to want 1 through 10. They're going to collect them and put them up on their wall in the vault. It's just a thing, right? Big, and because they only dropped 5,000, 3,000 commons, only 3,000 people are going to be able to have 1 through 10 in their vault. And so when it dropped, what are you going to look at? Well, why don't I look at ASM 4 and 6? They just dropped. They have more mints. They have 7,500. What are they selling for? And they've been out 2, 3, 4 weeks. So let's get it. They're dropping and selling. At the time, they were selling for 20 gems.
Wow.
So my thought process is this thing is 5,000. At a minimum, it should eventually sell for 20 gems because that's what the other ones are doing.
Right.
Sandman and Vulture, right? And their ASM. These are good comparables in my mind. But when it dropped out the door, it was selling for 17. And if you go buy one right now, you can get one for 13 flat. Once again, there are a lot less of these than there are of ASM 2 and ASM 4, which is Sandman and Vulture. So the target price is 20, maybe 25 gems in this market. I'm not talking about, if we can get. So I feel very comfortable buying this thing at 13. And how long? Once again, duration, I think it will take 30 days. Why? Because that's when they'll all delist automatically.
Nice.
So
yeah,
that's where so it's funny because, I agree that it feels great when things are pumping, but what's weird is when things pump, I don't know what's going on. I can't give you the target price. So let's rewind it a year, right? I had all kinds of great ones. You have all kinds of great ones, but let's just take Todd because I know you love Todd.
Yeah, thank you.
Todd was out of control. I did not know what was going on. I mean, it was selling for 8,000, sometimes 10,000 gems. Then you could find one. It was bouncing. I had no feel for it. I didn't know where to enter and buy something. I didn't know where to exit. It was now somebody who has probably better technical analysis than I could probably know these sort of things. But see how it's like it was on the way up. It probably was going to fall. I didn't know when. I couldn't. That's scary for me.
Yeah. And I remember that exactly because, and I think, the point that you're making too is a lot of times, if you're doing that analysis before something pumps or before something happens, that's when the opportunity is there instead of chasing something while it's on the way up. Because that's where I get you actually said this before. You're like, you got to get off this train at some point. And sometimes when it goes too high, you have to say bye. Right. And it's like, that's a perfect reflection of that. And so it's like when you're doing the analysis beforehand and you're looking at those similar comparables, you're going, okay, I know this is where these other ones are. I know this was the potential, previous all-time high. I think this is a good entry point. Then you're a lot more calculated. Right. So I think that's really smart. And sleeping, don't you think as well with maybe we're kind of like in this slow puncture wound right now, right? It's kind of like bleeding out and everything you're buying is slowly receding, but you got your MCP points, I think, today, right?
I did. So, they announced, I think it was yesterday or the day before that, they tried to release the beta, I think a couple weeks ago. It didn't go so well. There were some bugs or whatever, but they're right there. You can tell they're right there. So then they re-released it. They tweeted, they said they're going to re-release the beta, start adding people. I was part of the initial beta. So they must have included me in the second wave of beta. And suddenly, instantly, I literally logged in and whammo, it said, I think the screen said, congratulations, you've gained a level or something like that. And I was like, what is this talking about? But then I looked and it showed. So I'll tell everybody because I don't care. So I have around, I think I have exactly 1,900 comics and about 350 collectibles.
Wow.
So it's a lot.
It's a lot.
But nothing compared to some of the people you have on this channel. they're incredible.
You're getting up there though. You must be what, top 100 or top?
I was top 100 when you add those together for a long time, but people have surpassed me. I'm probably close, but I don't think I'm in the top 100 anymore. I might be, 125 or something. I'm close.
Yeah.
And as people know who followed my channel, my comics and collectibles are more optimized for MCP. Some people are just like, I bought like, and there's once again nothing wrong with this, but I bought, 10,000 Captain Americas, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But my collection, because I've been, very interested in MCP, is relatively optimized for the MCP. So anyways, what popped up, once again, I don't know if this is good or bad, or, we don't know anything, was I think I'm level, here, let me look again, because I forgot already.
I'm curious.
Okay, I am level 36, which I have no idea what that means. Good, bad, whatever.
Sounds good.
I have 238,000 points.
Holy shit.
That seems like a lot. I don't know. Probably nothing compared to Dr. Profit. Yeah. And then it says I am an MCP rank of starter, which I'm probably not a starter, but I mean, it's got to compute. It's got to figure out the stuff. So I think their first step that they said, correct me if I'm wrong, was they wanted to compute all the points up to that day. And then, because that was really hard for them, because they had to go back in time up to 2-3 years, or not 3 years, but at least 2 years for some of the people that have been involved. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. I mean, it sounds great. Like you said, we don't know what the implications are. 230,000 plus sounds like a lot, too bad they're not American dollars, but we'll see. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my little calculations that I've done, I think I should be getting around 1,300 points a day.
Wow.
With my sets and my comics, just kind of rough estimates. It's tough to know. So we'll see. And I don't know where that sits. I mean, I know that once again, there's people that are above me and below me. We'll see. And my kind of master plan, if you recall, I think we discussed it a little bit, was twofold. Number one, I'm just interested in it. I love VV. I like competing. That whole kind of, gamification thing I think is smart. I think that'll be fun. So with me being closer to the top, I can share those experiences with people. And I think that's good for my channel and whatnot. But I do think there's an interesting element here, because we know that these points can be used to buy those tickets and other things. So if you think about it this way, let's just pretend you use your points. Let's just pretend I get, whatever, for easy math. Let's just say I get what would be, 6,000 points a month. I don't know, whatever, 6,000. And I could buy tickets and whatnot. This is after I've, because your points only last 6 months, as you recall, and then they're gone. So you kind of, as soon as they say go, I'm going to have to spend my points, and everybody else is too. But after that 6 months is gone, then everybody will kind of be, they won't have this huge glut like they do right now. And then you'll be competing kind of at whatever level you're at. And so if you can use those tickets, because I'm, at level 36 or whatever it is, and that ensures me 1 or 2 drops, and let's just pretend I were to flip them right away.
Right.
So let's use an example that was tough. For example, Giant Size X-Men. Okay. I did not get it on. I tried, but I didn't get it on the drop. But if I used my tickets, maybe I would have gotten a couple of them. And, maybe I get a UR, obviously get a common. I sell those, just as you were just using quick math. That'd probably be 150 gems. So it's almost like the money that I've put into VV to get me to this level is now giving me like a dividend of $150 every month. Right. It's a reach, but you see what I'm saying?
100%. I see what you're saying. And I think that, the other piece of this as well, which I'm curious to get your thoughts on, is like, not only is it's going to be a massive incentive for the person that has all these collectibles, but now I think it's going to actually shift the market fundamentals, because, these cheap sets, like, for example, Silver Surfer, I think it's like 35 gems, pretty big FA. You can go buy that now, and then you get a full set. And I mean, that adds those MCP points. And then I think, at that same token, I think a lot of the big grails that are scarce and whatever, a lot of people are going to off those to go get a bunch of cheap sets, and it's going to level the market. So like the for lack of better words, the cheap stuff is going to go up. And
did you just call Silver Surfer shitty?
No, let's talk maybe some $2 comics. But even then, man, I mean, put it this way. there's nothing on Vivi that's shitty, okay, guys? So don't yeah, everything's amazing.
It's all great. Everything's
It's all
wonderful.
great. Whatever you want to collect what you
Yeah.
love. Collectors at heart. But that's what I'm trying to say is like I think it's going to level the playing field. But then what's going to happen is that if we do get interoperability long term, if people start taking those things off app because the ecosystem is almost helping propel the price points up potentially when they take them off app, they might see different prices. So I think like in some ways that whole VV ecosystem around the MCP is like a benefit to everybody that wants to stay inside the system, at least for the MCP component.
Yeah. No, I'm very curious. And as you can see, I'm putting my money where my mouth is because I'm
Mhm.
curious. And we'll just see how it plays out. I have said before, and I've read the MCP. I'm sure a lot of people have the MCP white paper version 1, I think is the one. And it's very ambiguous about what some of these things are going to be in terms of value adds to you. But the one thing that I believe is that let's just say that, you know, all the ranks and these different things, let's just say the MCP program is terrible. It's not
Mhm.
useful at all. I think people are going to voice their opinions, and I think they'll change it to be valuable. They will figure out value points, add-ons, whatever you want to call it, and they will continue to tweak it till it is valuable because it is to their advantage to do so.
Exactly. And this is going to be the first iteration, and like you said, there's going to be multiple iterations, and maybe in 5 years we're looking at a whole different program, right? And one thing I'm really curious about as well is like in the last well, not bear market, but when we were in the bull cycle before VV popped off, it was very scarce. I don't know when you got in, but I was in March 2021. And
Yeah, that's great. I got in September, I think,
okay, nice.
2021. So you
So
were
that's
6 months ahead of me.
and that's really when things started to pop off. So before then, it was very similar feeling now. I would say the FUD is a little bit higher because we've already been through the big, phase and have come back down, but it was the same kind of emptiness. And what happened was a lot of people poured their money into scarcity. And then when the bull market happened, all of a sudden the things that we never thought would get to crazy price points, like Todd at 7,500 editions, went to like 14K at an all-time high, right? I mean, there's lots of things for that. We could say that there was like the black market gems that
Right.
there's a perfect storm of things that propelled it to those price points. But my point to that is now I'm kind of seeing similar things happen. Like a lot of people are buying into scarcity and they're totally forgetting about things like Silver Surfer, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Daredevil, etc. And those are the things that when you get all the whole popularity thing that you were talking about is when we get all those people back in and the eyeballs are there, then those are things that are important again. Like, and so it's just interesting that in this market people really tend to avoid those items, it looks like, or maybe there's just not the volume or the density needed to like uphold those price points.
I mean, there's a lot more stuff, and we're getting more stuff by the by the day, right?
True.
So I think that does spread the gems, but it is interesting. Some of these things with extreme scarcity, and you never know which ones are going to pop off. One that I was very interested, I actually mentioned in my video, but then I saw again in your last guest, which was Michael Campa, who I
Mm,
think his name is. He's like an
yeah.
incredible, yeah. His story is incredible. That was a great video. I love that one.
Oh, awesome.
But the one that he was really interested in, which I actually remarked as well, was that self-help one. Remember, self-made. It's that
Mm,
wooden guy who's making himself,
yes.
and there's only like 500 of them or something like that.
Right.
And I have found that there are a lot of people that love that one. They have an emotional attachment to that one. Now,
Mm,
it's not, I think it's right over retail. I don't think it's really popped off, but it's exactly what you're talking about. How that is one I could see blow up, not financial advice,
yeah.
because people love it so much. It's super scarce. We're in this bear market, but in a bull market, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's a good point you made about the saturation too, right? Because more and more things keep getting dropped, and like that's where my concern is like, do we actually need maybe 3x the amount of users that we had in November 2021 just to sustain, the market that we had then, let alone see new all-time highs? And like, what does that mean in 5 years from now? Do we need like 30x the amount of people, or do we just need those same whales like you've talked about that have been here since the inception, that are continuing to pay it forward?
So, I've well, a number of companies, this and whatever.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you always examine is and it's funny because I've always done internet web 2 based stuff, but you still talk about your foot traffic, even though there's no feet walking around. But if you, in a retail sense, you know what I'm talking about, you're like, how much foot traffic can I have? Can I generate? And then of course, how much is that person going to spend while they're walking through my store? Like that's every retail store does that computation. I guarantee you. And it's the same way on a website, you know, how many clicks can I get? How many views and how many, and it's the same deal as how much money can each of these users, quote unquote users, spend? I think there's the person that comes in one time, they're interested in, you know, Sesame Street, and then they leave. What are they going to spend? Well, they're probably not going to spend 60 gems. That's why I think people are not happy with that price point. It is 60,
Yes.
60 or 50. I can't remember, but
60.
it's really high, but whatever. It is what it is. You know, they've made their own calculations, but generally that's why I like the Marvel Mighties, is they're at a great price point. In the secondary, you can buy them for 4 gems, 5 gems. It's great. People can come in, they're fun. They can buy them. They can, you know, have them in their vault and get, I think those are great ones, and they should. And I am not offended by the fact that they generally have, quote unquote, too many mints. I think it's fine, because we have to have that type of, once again, how much money is someone going to spend coming in the door? That's why comics are great. You can get a lot of comics for 2 gems, right?
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that, honestly, in my mind. So what they need to do, to your point, is, because not everybody is, I'll just keep picking on Dr. Profit. I don't mean to pick on the guy, obviously, but let's just say he's the most notable whale that we know. And I don't want to name some of the others, even though we all know their names.
We all know their names.
Is what, you know, the majority of people in their lifespan, or maybe within a 365-day window, they're probably only going to spend 200-300 gems. So that's your point, is how are they going to spend those 200 or 300 gems? Are they going to spend them on comics? Are they going to spend them all on one Lamborghini? But it's probably not. Unless they win the lottery or something like that, it's probably only going to be 200 or 300 gems each year.
Exactly. And that's the majority of users. I mean, even for me right now, like, I don't have the capital that I had back then, because, you know, we're in a bear market. So I don't have, you know, 4 or 5 grand a month to be like, oh, let me dish this in to Veve Nfts. Like, you know, if I get lucky on a drop, or if I make the right move, you know, things are fantastic. But the market action has definitely, you know, diminished like significantly. So you're right. Like, you know, and I think real collectors will see that opportunity. Even now, for me, I don't know how you feel, but like, I sometimes rather buy something on Veve than to go to my local comic book shop, because I could see my collection grow, and digitally, you know, I could talk about it, I could show it off. That social capital component, has that shifted for you at all, or you still like enjoy them both?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
I still buy physical comics. I pull them through an online comic store. But I don't visit the local comic book store as often as I did. I'm not buying a lot of slabs. I'm just not as active collecting comics right now. I mean, you know, it's Veve, it's Bat Cowls, it's, you know, and I actually try not to get involved in any of these other projects. Not that I don't love them, but, you know, there's a limit to what you can do, right? I'll buy everything, right? As you know, I'll be living on the street, but it's, you know, there's a limit. We all have limited resources, right? So it's a limit to what you can do, and for me right now, my focus has been Veve, and really it's because it's the Marvel. I'm so into Marvel, as you can see. That's kind of my jam. So it's the digital representation of that, and so that's really why. As much as I, you know, like Bat Cowls, as much as I like some of the other projects, really, I like Marvel, and therefore that's went with Veve.
Amazing, man. And I'm presuming you saw, like, I know we talked about it briefly, but all the backlash going around about the Sesame Street Cookie Monster.
Yeah, I didn't see as much of it, but obviously it looks like, so the exciting thing, correct me if I'm wrong, was it looked like some of these articles initially kind of talking about the drop, like with Variety Magazine or whatever, like millions of people were viewing it.
Yeah.
So that was exciting.
Right.
But the negative was that, like, MSNBC and some other people were like, what they think is a rug pull, or
Yeah, I think you're right. So I think a lot of people were like, oh, 60 gems is a lot of money for something that's supposed to be all about accessibility, inclusivity, and, like, you know, especially appealing to, you know, places like, you know, kids in third world countries, as an example, or something like that. But, you know, what we've kind of learned, I think recently, was that a lot of the price point will be, some of it will be going to charity. I haven't read the whole thing, but there is a charity component to it, which is good. But then at the same time, people are saying, there's Elmo products and Cookie Monster products that are like, $100 for like a pillow as well. And, a lot of people just, they didn't do their research. They're like, hey, you can use, this product is animated. This NFT is animated. You could put it into your augmented reality, right? It's like a collector's item. There's so much more to it than just like this $60 cash grab. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a collector's item. That's what I look at it as, obviously, with the fact that you use an augmented reality. We've talked about this before. And there's this quote unquote unknown. Where else are you going to be able to use it in the metaverse?
Right.
Whereas when you buy the pillow, we know what that is, right? You can sleep with it. You're going to, whatever. It is what it is, right?
Limited.
So I think, what I always, we've talked about this before, but I feel like it's the unknown. It's the repeat of the internet in my mind.
Yeah.
It's the, back in the day, people were just scared of the internet. They didn't know what it was. People would always ask me, what is the internet? And
Interesting.
I mean, and I never knew quite how to answer it, because it's like a very, it's all these computers that are connected, I never knew how to answer it, right? And even if you physically understand what the internet is, it's, all these computers network together. That isn't what the value proposition is, especially from a business perspective. And that's where people, I think, go wrong with blockchain, with NFTs and everything. They're like, what is it? Well, it's, this kind of algorithm that allows us to, I can tell you what it is, but that's not what the business proposition and value of how it's going to add to businesses and their capability to do different things, which in the end is value to the consumer. Like, and that we don't even know yet or understand. And when I started with the internet, I didn't even understand it. It was like where we're at right now. I mean, really, the really great thing about the internet in the beginning was email, which was actually pretty great. You know what I mean? And then websites, and obviously it's all the other stuff that's come along with it, right? But I think that's where blockchain NFTs are. We don't quite understand its value proposition, and there's so many nooks and crannies along the way that we don't even understand yet and are yet being developed. A great example is like AI. We've been hearing about AI for how many years?
True.
One aspect of AI is Terminator robots that's going to kill us. Another aspect of AI is, they talked about how it's going to help medicine, and these, robots are going to stitch you up. I don't know, it's craziness, right? But what, the Chat GPT, some of the different things, the Midjourney thing that does the graphics, right? Now we're finally, as consumers and people, being able to see, whoa, how is this really helping people? What was the one that someone said they needed a lawsuit, and so they had Chat GPT write the lawsuit for them so they could sue. I mean, just madness, right? It's going to be very tangible in how it's going to help us. And yet we've waited for all these years, and really it's just the infancy of it all. We just got to fast forward a little bit. And then, as we know, NFTs and blockchain are going to be right there.
I think that's so well said, and somebody that's like lived it like you. And I remember you told me about that when you were like first, asking people if they wanted a website built, I think it was. Yeah. And they're like, no, what the heck are you talking about? And then you're like, okay, do you want email? And they're like, oh, I'll do email. And it was like funny because you're already thinking like almost too far ahead. Right. And that's kind of how we are now, is we're seeing the picture too far ahead without the actual, blocks in place to like everyone feels safe about stepping there. But like you and I are seeing it 2-3 blocks ahead. Right.
It's exactly. And it's a problem because they literally, people didn't understand what a website was. So what I would say is it's an online brochure. Like, do you send out brochures to your customers? Back then, yeah, everybody did. They had some sort of, most likely, physical mail thing back then that they would mail out to people. That's how they did their thing, And depending, if you're a retail company, obviously you had a catalog or whatever. But even other companies that had services, they had some sort of brochure that they would hand out. This is what I do. I paint houses or whatever it is, right? And so I would say this is an online brochure where you can show all of your different, services and talk about them in depth. There was no video or anything back then, right? And they would but then here was the problem. They would say to me, I get it. None of my customers use the internet.
Mm.
And they're not lying. They weren't
Right.
lying. And that's the problem we have here. It's like, once they finally, people are like, oh, I actually understand what these NFTs are, but nobody uses them. No company uses them.
I got you.
So we have to make these jumps.
Right. And so what was it that moved people from like, like onboarding to the internet? Like, was that just like mainstream adoption slowly but surely? Like, what was that major catalyst?
I think it was AOL.
Really? Okay.
I feel like that was one of the big ones, right? You could get it. They handed them out for free. Those like discs. You probably don't even remember.
No,
You definitely don't remember.
I'm a 91
Nobody
baby.
had, okay, so you had to get these modems, you install them, and then they used your phone line. Like, it was ridiculous back then. But it was a, year by year, and I can't tell you when. I feel like it kind of started really going 97, 98, 99, somewhere in there. We kind of hit some sort of mainstream adoption, and then it was rolling.
Wow.
But I can't remember when Google came around. I think I first discovered Google in 99. I could be wrong. I remember I thought it was such a funny name.
But it's really interesting, Sleeping, because today I landed the Wiz comics, right? I got an epic variant, which was pretty dope. 9.4 grade, right? And I'm looking at it through DC, and I'm like, wow, like this is, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, this is mine forever. I'm like, I could read it anytime I want. Feels a lot safer in here. I don't have to worry about it in my house. The mobility aspect. And then I went into, this is my first time going to the panel reader when they zoom in. And I was like blown away by like the quality and the high grade of like detail. I'm like, this is actually clearer than me reading this comic in real life, and I'd have to worry about damaging it. And
yeah,
so
there's
no way you would read it, right?
Not that one.
Yeah, I mean, not way, right.
No one's reading that one. I mean, how many are there in the world? 50, something like that. It's and they're all slabbed.
Exactly, right. So it was amazing actually have the opportunity to go through this, and so I guess like my point is like I'm seeing that vision, right? I'm already experiencing what it's going to be like in the future, and it's just like I don't understand what the issue is like in terms of like getting these people to to see what we're seeing, right? It's like, how could you not think that this, maybe it's not going to be a better experience, maybe the value is not necessarily better because there's only 50 Wiz number 2s in the world, etc. But like, wouldn't you want to be a part of this? Like, don't you think that's amazing that even if you owned it, you've never been able to read it, but now you could see it and it's like yours forever on the blockchain? Like, I don't know, like it's an interesting thing.
I mean, once again, I'm 100% with you. There's just too many. I think there's too many doors to unlock right now. With the internet, actually, if you think about it, I almost think the internet's a tougher lift because you actually have to buy a modem. I'm going to buy a modem. Are you crazy? You have to, and they're expensive, $100 or something like that back in the day. Then you've got to get the service. You got to pay per month. And then what are you going to do? Go to chat rooms and talk to people or do email. I mean, eventually, obviously, people got there, but it's a tough lift, right? To get there. For us, it's easier. I mean, you literally can get involved with this stuff for very, very, I mean, to a certain degree, almost free. I mean, you got to put in a little bit of money, but I just think that there's too much fear. There's just too much fear of it all. Is it a scam? Is it, and then it does turn to just kind of like blind hatred, which we've seen a lot of, which we did see a lot of. You see that a lot of that in anything, right? I bet you there will be absurd amounts of blind hatred for AI. I bet you there'll be whatever. Just think about like Tesla and other things. How many people just hated Tesla and electric cars? I remember talking to friends like, oh, these electric cars are crap. No one's ever going to buy. This Tesla company is going out of business. Have you seen any of the articles? They're going to go out. They're running out of money next month.
Exactly. I think that you say it perfectly. Whenever there's something new like that, the whole world almost like tries to take it down for whatever reason.
It's so cliche, right? That people are going to be afraid of it. Like everybody says that, right? Go look at all those funny graphs that people already, where are you at with the graph? Are you, at fear or, but yet we're witnessing it. is kind of amazing. I think you just have to have a more curious mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are and this is where I guess experience does help you, because there are legitimate things that are probably, I don't know if the word is dangerous, but there definitely could be scams.
Yeah.
Uh, and I guess back in the day it would be penny stocks, right? They always talked about be careful with penny stocks because a lot of these could be pump and dumps and stuff like that.
But it
I
is
don't know.
interesting. I love what you're saying there, because like, let's say like, you know, you first introduced me to Veve, let's say like 8 months ago or before the cash out, and it was my first time seeing it, and you're like, oh, you know, you can buy this and it's 8 grand, but you can't cash it out. My immediate reaction would be like, well, that's a scam. Like, there's no way I'm going to go in this. But once you knew about the team and that the cash out was on the way and the process, I'd be like a lot more open to it. But it's like actually taking the time, like you said, to like educate yourself and not be, you know, potentially ignorant to the idea, or even naive. You see it a lot as well. Like, you know, what you talked about earlier is like with the metaverse, you know, like how the heck do you think we're going to operate within the metaverse? It's going to be through NFTs. Like, that's how things are going to operate. So it's like right away, if you think that that's the future, then like that's going to be one of the major pieces of the pie, you know?
Everything will be NFT. You and I know it. It's not going to
Exactly.
be literally everything is going to be an NFT.
You got
And
it.
um you know, everything, your mobile phone contract, you know it, I know it. It's all going to happen. You know, your medical, you know, records. It's all going to, you know, you can
Exactly.
track it. It can be secured. You can write a smart contract. We know this is all coming down the pipe. It's just a matter of when. But the one thing, you know, it's people used to ask me that, you know, at every level, right? Right when I got in, they asked me about it. You know, when it was at its high last January and February, when it's high, now it's kind of, you know, what do you think? You can get your money out. You can't get your money out. Is it a scam? And I say it could be. It all could be a scam. We don't know. And actually, it might not be a scam, but it just might not make it.
Right.
Companies go out of business. Weird stuff happens. We don't understand, you know, maybe there's something odd happens, you know, I'm not trying to fight it, but, you know, unless something happens in New
Yeah.
Zealand, we don't know, right? But you're making educated guesses.
Right.
And when we were, well, there's weird stuff happening and people are buying gems at half price, and, you know, but whatever. But the fact of it is, when you couldn't cash out, the prices of things were baked in, that at that point was even more of a risk.
Exactly.
So it was priced in. If you wanted to buy Amazon before it was Amazon, when it only sold books, and you couldn't see the vision of where they were going, which nobody did, they didn't,
Right.
it's priced in. That's why it was only, I'll make it up, you know, $100 a share back then.
Yeah.
And so we are buying things right now in a bear market. You're getting ASM 1 at its price because it's a speculative asset. That's the way I look at it.
And that's exactly how I see it too. And you know, and any successful company ever has been at this stage. Some of them make it, some of them don't, but like that's the buy-in point, right?
And, you know, there's a couple of things that, you know, and there are, once again, I think, and I've said this before, I think we should be critical. I think we should hold the team accountable. If they're missing their deadlines, which we didn't force them to come out and make deadlines and tell them to tell us their deadlines. No one's forcing them to do anything.
Yeah.
So when they don't follow through with things that they have said, because that's the only way we can judge them. They say something, you listen, then can you follow, right? That's how the world works, right? But I still, you know, and people are like, it's just, it's not all of those things that I have seen that have happened with Veve up to this point, with maybe the exception of two things, and I'll say those two things right now. I don't think it's them doing a scam, pulling a scam. It's them running a company that's complicated.
Exactly.
Now, I will say the two things that I didn't like. The two things that I didn't like were a year ago they said there was 3 million users, and that was an accurate statement if you go by the definition of active users. But they knew that they were not telling it to us the way we understood it. the way we understood it is we thought that was literally people that were buying stuff in the app. That was probably maybe people who made accounts or some other definition that they had from a maybe legal actual definition. It was probably closer to 50 or 100,000. That I didn't like that. I didn't like that. And then the second thing that I didn't like, which I said, is I still think there's some weird stuff that went on with that common Spider-Man, the very first Spider-Man, where Omi Byrne figured out. And, they don't have to tell us, but I do think there is some goofiness that went on there. And once again, we don't know. Okay, maybe it was bots or other things that they've said, but I do feel like they probably bought them themselves. They bought, out of the thing. And so good. Don't tell us anything. You don't have to then do a thing that said it got it sold out. That was deception in my mind.
Yeah, and I think that's where, like kind of one of those famous things where it's like, if there's this one part that's been deceiving, then wait a second, now does that mean that it's a domino effect and everything else is based on that? And that's where I think the fear gets, almost becomes exponential, because it's like, okay, wait a second, how many other things are like this? And then when you're not seeing that progress, you're not seeing, for instance, like little things like comic in the showrooms, or we're finally starting to see MCP now, but it's like just like stuff like interoperability, like all these things that people are talking about, it creates a fear, and then that's propagated by the fact that it's like a bear market. There's less money being around. There's
100%.
Yeah,
100%. But it's not binary. People are like, they're either scam artists or they're the best company ever.
right.
No, that's not how it is. Do you think that any of these companies that are Fortune 500 companies have ever told the truth every single time and never messed up on some sort of PR? Come on.
Yeah.
We know that's not true. They probably said stuff they shouldn't, or did this, or act on accident, or were delayed on something that they shouldn't have, and then maybe didn't tell the truth about it. They all have done that a million times throughout their, do you think that none of these Fortune 500 companies have had predatory practices or, anything that, we know, right?
Sure.
Maybe shouldn't have hired this, this particular third world country to do something, what I mean? That they should,
100%.
I'm not, it's capitalism, right? Love or hate it. But it's not a binary thing in terms of, in my mind, at least, oh, they didn't tell us the active users. Now they're scammers and I should, throw out everything and run away and go do something else. No, I still think the underpinning pieces of the puzzle that we were sold and I am witnessing here all speak to me. And until I don't hear that, then I would sell everything and leave. But that's, incredible IP, cutting edge technology, FA, all these things, they're right here for us.
And I think those are brilliant points that you bring up, and I share the exact same sentiment as you. Like I'm put it this way, I was almost like blindly optimistic at the beginning because all these things were like happening, and I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. Not necessarily like being a little more critical of potentially what could go wrong, or like that we're in a bear or a bull market and all these things. So I think like looking back, I was like, yeah, I definitely think I could have been more critical. But despite Veve, I believe in the IP success as well, right? So it's like, like despite how you feel about Veve, like this is partner statue. This is 113 editions of the FA Lizard. This is
Lizard, always the Lizard.
Yeah, but it's like these are crazy, in real life, like very valuable things. And this is Marvel. This is Disney. So these are their. Somebody said it. I think it was I forget exactly his name, but he said, we should start calling these things what they are: Lamborghini NFTs. You know what I mean? Like Sesame Street NFT coming up. Like these are what they are, and they happen to be on Veve, which is like other NFTs happen to be on OpenSea. And so it's just interesting because generally people like FUD about different projects on OpenSea, not necessarily like OpenSea itself, but I guess because Veve is kind of the the centralized system that gets all these things in, people are more critical of them. But my point is like, let's say, like, I think David, you said it, if Veve does go bottoms up, like you still technically have the, the verification of that token address, and that could be searchable, right?
Yeah, that's more of the infamous interoperability and, that let me just back up one second. Because I think there's something that I wanted to say there. And that's that, 99, okay, maybe 98% of the people here are looking still at this as an investment. They're looking to make money off this. They might like Silver Surfer like me, but for the most part, one of the biggest things I think that has changed with the fact of this bear market and the fact that we don't have as many users is we actually mentally have to reset. And that is that I don't think that the, you know, times 10 return may be there as much as we used to. Now, if you had a Miles SR, which I know you do, that might be a different case. But for the most part, I think that going into and waiting for these collectibles to, you know, time, you know, multiply by 10 return is probably not. But that doesn't still mean that returns are still possible. It's just that maybe it's 2 or 3 times, which is still incredible, right?
Yeah.
Because in a normal stock market, as we know, that would take you 7 years at an average return rate of whatever. So I think that might be something we also have to look at is as investors, maybe in this particular way things are right now, it's not always looking for these home runs.
Exactly. Yeah. Were you gonna say something else there?
Oh, I was gonna move to the interoperability thing. So I
Okay.
think,
Yeah.
and it's so complicated, and this gets into an area where I actually don't really know that much about it. I mean, I know enough. I've heard enough in the spaces. I've read enough on my own. I obviously understand that it'd be great to sell our things in other markets and, you know, kick it in the cold storage. But I do think that each, and from a tech guy, if you're writing technical code, right? You know, I've done a lot of that. You want to look at each piece of functionality because a piece of functionality is a promise. So a promise would be you can take your collectible out of our system into cold storage. Therefore, once again, if we get hacked, you don't lose it. Like that's a promise.
Yeah.
We have not been, you know, given that promise, but it's interesting. And as a person who has a bunch of collectibles, I could see why that's very valuable. I'd like you to fulfill that promise, right? Another promise, but is actually different is, can I take my collectible and go to various marketplaces and sell it?
Right.
That's a different, in a tech perspective, that's a different piece of functionality. Now, I get it that once you attach yourself to certain blockchains in certain ways, you get all of this functionality. So in other words, if you are in OpenSea and you are, you know, with using Ethereum, whatever, you get all this stuff when you are using an NFT in that environment. And I get that. Okay. But the question is can Veve fulfill some of these things, but not necessarily have the NFTs in OpenSea and other places? Do you know what I mean by that? In other words, could they allow it to be put in some sort of cold storage? And remember, they have their kind of like custom cold storage thing that they used to sell.
Yes.
So maybe it's a cold storage piece, but it's still in the ecosystem of Veve. So you meet the requirement of what happens if all of our databases get hacked, you would be okay. See how you would fulfill that promise. Now, once traditionalists and people that are more crazy about blockchain and know more than I do about blockchain are probably writing in the comments right now and are about to come to my, you know, about to kill my Twitter, and that's fine. I'll take the heat from that.
Yeah.
But you could say I'm just talking conceptually here. Can they solve some of these problems to take the heat off of people so you can feel better? Because one of the things you learned about FTX that was scary is all these people had their stuff there, right? Their crypto there. They turned off your login and you are SOL.
Bye.
And then they're like, oh, actually, let me try this again because I'm trying to remember how it went down. Like, I actually think you could log in. You could just not move any of the money out.
Correct.
And what was worse is then like someone was taking all the money. So can you imagine just hitting refresh on the screen and watching your account just dwindle to not? I mean, come on, right?
Wow.
Ridiculous. So it'd be like, you know, going into Veve and watching, you know, each of your comics like
Being sold.
be taken away, right? And, you know, so there's this feeling of helplessness. So the question is can they fulfill that requirement, that promise in a different way, but fulfill their other promises that they've talked about to these different licensors? I don't know. I'm way out of my league right now, but you can kind of see what I'm trying to say in some of this stuff.
So it's fascinating, Sleeping, because that's exactly how I interpret it as well. And the reason I do that is because of the Disney metaverse aspect. And I'm like, okay, so they have like these assets all on Veve right now. And like, you know, in my opinion, like, I mean, we still don't know what the futures look like, but I would presume there's going to be some kind of bridge there. And like you said, I just think that right now, like the entire, crypto sphere is a bit like the Wild West. And I think there's almost going to be like centralization, like interoperability within like almost like a centralized aspect of things. You know what I mean? Like almost like 3 or 4 major companies get together and it's interoperable between those things, but then like not necessarily like interoperable within the larger ecosystem. So that's how I envision it as well.
And it's, it's not like this is the first time there's walled gardens, is what they call it,
Yeah.
and then the Wild Wild West. So if you look at, the App Store for Apple, completely walled garden. They control everything. They examine your code before they put it up in the store. Whereas you look at the Android store, it's just kind of like the Wild Wild West. So, and both work. Both work.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall what Steve Jobs said, which is they had so much tight control. No, I think Steve Jobs was known as a control freak, but so much tight control because he felt like if there was a bunch of crap in the App Store, it would devalue Apple.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
he wanted to control and standardize the experience. He wanted it to be good. In the end, he always wanted it to be, unbelievable. That was his game, right?
and that's exactly how I see Vivi. Is like they've hidden all the blockchain stuff, under the rug and made it super simple for people just going on their phone and be like, I own an NFT now, not necessarily seeing everything that's gone on in the back end. And I think that's where like when they want to cater to the masses, that's where like the biggest push is going to be because it's the easiest step forward for people rather than going on and making a transaction on Pancake Swap and all this crap. So so with that, I guess my other thoughts around interoperability is like I think there's one component where like the licensors is really attractive because they get their fix, the royalty component. On top of that, smaller brands, smaller artists, of things they would have dropped on OpenSea wouldn't have the same marketing or leverage. Now they come on Vivi and they get almost an instant sellout because not only people start to like that IP, you get the MCP component, which makes it more attractive, etc. But then what I think about is like if you ever went interoperable completely, a lot of the stuff that's on Vivi now would never have the eyeballs to support it. It would almost like make all the Vivi users too widespread, and there wouldn't be that like commonality anymore. They would just be focusing on big IP. Like we always talk about the big stuff, like the Grails, and without if we weren't attached to Vivi, we wouldn't necessarily ever talk about the smaller things or the artists happening. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they've had all these discussions times 10 that, we've had, and there's reasons for it all. And it might simply come down to the matter of they don't have the development time right now to put forth, and they're going to do it and whatever, I mean, we talked about this before, but, and, they've mentioned multiple times, and it makes sense that some of the independent artists would be okay with letting their IP go, off to other marketplaces. It just comes down to really, I think, what makes sense as they're growing their company. Like that's, people, once again, I think in my mind, once again, this is my opinion, are too focused on, he said this and, they never followed through on this. So they're all scammers. It is a fluid, everything is fluid right now, right? Legislation is fluid, laws are fluid. I mean, the business is fluid, the economies are fluid. Everything is crazy all at the same time.
Exactly.
Literally.
And this is just even that higher level of a diving board that you got to jump off of,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but and I heard from the horse's mouth that, people haven't said this. They have, Vivi never came out and said interoperability wasn't going to happen. But I
That's a
think
good
that,
point too.
yeah, I think the big thing that I've heard was that there was a lot of technological and licensor limitations, and then the harmonization of having so many brands that like, what does that ecosystem look like when some are out, some are in? Or do you have to wait till everybody goes out and everybody can come back in? So you know what I mean?
One thing I should really do a better job of and discuss, because there's a lot of people obviously in Twitter spaces that could answer this question for me, is why do they want it so bad? Do they want interoperability so bad because and once again, I if all things were, I would take it versus
Yeah.
not take it, by the way, just so I'm on the record of saying that. If it was possible, why not, right? But why do they want it so bad? Are they mad because they said they were going to do it and now they haven't done it? Is that it? Or are they mad because they're afraid, like because of this security issue? Like, if their databases get hacked, then they could lose all their stuff. Like, are they mad because if they could take it and move it to OpenSea, they could sell the stuff for more? Like, I just, are they mad because they really want to have their, once again, I don't even know how this would work, but how they want their NFTs to show up in the HRO cards. I mean, I don't even know what do they, what are the reasons here?
Yeah. So the number one reason that I've heard is like the digital ownership component. So like as an example, like let's say you're playing like the Nintendo Switch or like Game Boy, is like Vivi right now is like that game. And like you get all these things in that game, but like it stays within that cartridge. And like if you break that cartridge or something happens to it or you lose it, like you can never get those, those things that you maybe have developed or leveled up in that game. And so I think from what I've understanding from people is like, interoperability digitally is like you can take that cartridge and like put it somewhere else and like then take those assets out somewhere else. You can lock it away. You can do anything you want with it. And you're not necessarily privy to the limitations within that, like Nintendo's limitations, or like you have like this open kind of sphere of everything that you can do with it. And then I think the second component to that, which is what we see in like other NFT projects, like A Kid Called Beast, is like, in those projects, you can actually like build your
Right. The
characters.
licensing it's like it's yours. That was also the case, I believe, in Broadsiders. Like it's like
Exactly.
you that is never happening. They're not letting you do anything you want with Spider-Man, right? So
You got it.
that's not happening. No, I get the other side of it though. It is interesting. It does make sense to me. But once again, I would say you're trying to use physical analogies to a world in which we don't quite understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, digital things are always, to my knowledge, at the mercy of the code containers that they're within. So, the token, I guess,
I
because
know
it's
what you're
weird.
saying.
At one level, conceptually, be like, I want to make sure that Sleeping Comics owns this comic. Well, okay, so how would I own it? Well, the company says I own it. Okay, good. But it's even better than that. We have a third-party company called IMX that says I own it. Why? Because they're the ones who control the blockchain and they're the ones who control my wallet, right? And they're the ones, I've gone to IMX. It's independent from Veve and my token's in there, right? I looked at it. So we have a third party that is guaranteeing that I own this. So once again, if Veve goes bye-bye, the token might not point to anything. I can't get to my, whatever comic or whatever. But we at least have one other party that is saying Sleeping Comics owns this thing that's independent from Veve. I'd be interested. I should follow up. That's my own to do, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I think like the conversation's pretty complicated, and there's a lot of people that have different perspectives, and I think like I just tried to, like my best to, like you said, to talk about some of this stuff. Like, I'm more of a collector at heart. Actually, I was a flipper at heart, but I'm kind of in the middle now. But no, I know what you're saying. It's complicated, but at the same time, like you said, what if a smaller blockchain, like let's just not use Ethereum as an example, but with like another startup and you had like your NFTs on there and then that failed, how's that any different than like a server that has no NFT component to it? You know what I mean? That just has like collectibles that aren't necessarily NFTs, so it's like it's a whole conversation.
That's the core basis of why blockchains are great, is that if you look at, I'll just make it up, normal things where you buy software. You can't use physical. We got to go into the software. So if I buy a digital license to something, a prime example would be trying to think of something. I can't think of anything offhand, but like, I buy a license to something and that company goes bye-bye. It's over, right? Like nobody even knows I own that thing.
Right.
Whereas this is published out to the world in an independent way that says I bought this thing. You can see the transaction. If that company goes, now it still might be worthless because the services were tied to that company. You know what I mean? But
I know you're saying, yeah.
But it's at least it's independently verified that I own it. It stays in that world. Obviously, it's immutable. It's, it's
Yeah.
replicated across all the servers that use that block, blah, 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 blah. Right.
Right. And then on top of that, like you said too, like, so we have, immutable, you have Veve, and then you also have, like, let's just say Disney too, that would know that that asset is, still theirs, but is not on, let's say, Veve anymore. So, like, there's a lot of different eyeballs on it. Like, you know what I mean? Rather than just a physical item that, they give you something, the company breaks down, you can't get parts anymore, and that's it. You know what I'm trying to say? So it's, yeah.
The physical is interesting because since you physically have it, like, they can't, unless they're going to send a police car to your thing and try and take it away from you. Like, it
True.
is yours, right? But this is where it's this conceptual jump that digital things can be owned, which is something that we haven't seen before. This is why it's a different. I think this is why we all struggle with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's kind of like, I guess a better way to say it would be like, back in the day, I always had Adobe Photoshop, and you would actually physically get it. You get this box, you have a bunch of CDs, you know what I mean? You like load it on your computer. It had a serial number. That serial number was really important because that was the only thing that, like, basically told people you owned it. But then, as we know, in the past 10 years, there's no CDs. You digitally buy this stuff.
Right.
You get that serial number. That serial number is like your life. That's the only thing that proves, and maybe you could go through your emails where you could say that I bought this thing. It's kind of like an NFT in a weird way, but you can't resell it.
Yeah.
But I think I own Adobe Photoshop, right?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
But I don't physically own the latest version. Well, now I
Yeah.
actually rent it month by month. Now you pay a service fee to Adobe, and then whatever. Anyways, nobody actually owns anything anymore.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think it's a fascinating conversation, right? And I think it's exciting because, this is the first time in history where we've been using a lot of digital things, but we never had that sense of ownership before, right? Like like you said, you're renting things. We went from the physical to the digital, but now we're kind of moving into that ownership aspect of it, and it's confusing, right? And I think that's where, even for people that have been in here, we're still contemplating what that means. I would even argue that, if you went to some really, like, heavy Web3 gurus, they would still kind of get it into maybe even a more advanced kind of coding discussion on what ownership is too. So what does this stuff, like, mean to you? And I think what you said to me, like, last time was you get to basically have a piece of this IP. Like, when you're buying into a Miles Morales or a Spider-Man or a Wiz Comics #2, like, you're owning a piece of, that IP for the metaverse, so to speak, or for the digital future. Maybe you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll talk through it quickly again. And, once again, this is me making up stuff because I don't know, right? But I think that, one thing that we, ownership, right, that we have purchased is this ability to show, we'll just use Miles Morales, this particular digital statue in AR, like, at will. Because
Yeah.
if you want to take a picture of it next to your car, next to your wife, next to your kid, whatever, um, the equivalent would be like going to buy a Miles Morales, like, actual physical statue, or like a poster, and then like putting it around, something like
Yeah.
something like that. And that's fine. You could take pictures of it with your wife, your kid, and your car, like the statue. But where it gets completely wacko is when we move to a more digital virtual space. And because
Mhm.
you can't take the poster or the statue or the comic and bring it in there. I mean,
Right.
I guess you could try to digitally render it in there or something weird. I don't even know how you would do it, right? And so that, and as we know that, even what we're doing right now through StreamYard, I think in the future we will be able to click a button and it will show some sort of digital space that we have created in the background. We don't have to show our offices.
Yeah.
And of course, as we know, we could fill that with NFTs or art or whatever we want. Pictures of a beach or whatever, next to the Eiffel Tower, whatever you want. But then, of course, the next natural reaction is all these software programs, are they going to certify, I don't know if that's the correct word, validate that the things that you're showing behind are NFTs that you actually own?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they will.
Exactly.
I think they will. And since the lens in which we communicate visually is going to be controlled by software, StreamYard, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Now I know that Instagram just decided they're not going to do their NFT platform anymore, but they'll come back to it.
Yeah.
They are going to control the keys to what you can, and they're going to probably most likely check the blockchain. If you don't own a Miles and you decide to show a Miles, they're going to not let you. It's
Fraud.
exactly like if I really want to, play the Beatles in every one of my YouTube, videos, they're all going to get demonetized.
Right.
Now, it took them a little bit of time to build that tech, but go ahead. I want anybody to start up a video and put the Beatles in the background and see what happens. You're not going to like it.
And it's happened to me. I don't know about you, but a few videos I put in like soundtracks from like, and they automatically demonetize you. Yeah.
And I would say, why don't you try taking the entire video of, Avengers Endgame and shove that into your video and see how it goes. And you're going to get demonetized. It's going to chop it out. And so
wow,
that's gonna, you see what I'm saying? And so as soon as it can check the blockchain and all this other stuff, it's what you're going to be able to show is going to be tied to what NFTs you own. And I think that's going to provide, as you said, social capital. And it's cool, right? The reason why I have AF-15 right there is because I love Spider-Man and it's cool. But you have to admit, it's good for my channel. It's good. I mean, let's just be honest, right? It helps my credibility. It's a flex, right? This is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. There's nothing, why do people buy? Why don't everybody buy? Oh, I'm going to say something terrible. I got to pick the car carefully. Why doesn't everybody buy this lesser car instead of a Lamborghini?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, so this is exactly where it comes down to is like, you're always trying to flex with that Lamborghini, even though you're going to the same point, you're going to point B from point A, but you look cooler, the status symbol, it's more comfortable. And it's like what you said, if I know that, like, let's just say different songs in the future are going to be monetized, like the Beatles, let's just say, and like they split their first album into like only 10,000 copies and the first ever song, and like you can only have the first edition of this on the blockchain. And then all of a sudden now when you have your intro video, you can use that and your Miles Morales is in the background doing a jig. And like now people are like, holy shit, this guy's loaded. And like that's your intro. So right away I'm hooked because I already know you're worth 50K. And now I want to know more about you. How did you do that? You're making the right moves, right?
I mean, I think you still need good content. You still need all these things, right? You still need, but it is, love it or hate it. That's how the world works.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think you're right. And I think on top of that too, to have that type of collectible, and this is where when the metaverses open up, this is where we're going to see a whole other component that I don't even think we can fathom right now, which is going to be like, getting into exclusive clubs, being able to open up different geographical locations, maybe being more interoperable to different metaverses, or like if Snoop Dogg owns that, it's an automatic license to come into his, I don't know, his house or whatever, right? Like there's so many things now that it's going to just like, and that's where it gets confusing because then you get into burning, renting and all this other stuff, but exciting.
But it's all through software. See, that's the key. The world is our portal into the world, other than when we actually go out into the real world, which is good. We should continue to do that, right? Go out, meet face to face, but 90% of the time is spent through these software portals. Software is allowing you and I to communicate right now, and as on Twitter Spaces and et cetera, et cetera. And so those companies who create the software most likely will, I'm thinking, they will implement validation to various blockchains. I just think it's going to happen. Just like YouTube validates, different, audio songs or videos, signals, whatever, however they do it. Obviously, it's very complicated, as does, I don't know that much about Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, but I mean, I'm assuming that if you just start trying to do stuff on Facebook that's copyrighted, they're not going to like that.
Exactly. And I think that's where, going to like first on chain, first on the blockchain, first appearance makes so much sense to me, because it's proven data points, right? That like after the fact, like in 10 years from now, you can look back and be like, okay, despite there being another 77 Vader drops, I still know that this was like the FA and therefore can hold, more significance. Despite like future iterations having better scarcity, than the previous ones. But like, I just think that that's, a major component that people are also overlooking. And I don't know how many whales that you talk to, but like they seem to be pretty adamant about FA.
Oh yeah. It's FA I think is it's another marker of scarcity, right?
Yeah.
It's because as you said, there's going to be 95 more Vader drops, and which are the ones with the first. It just continues to assist when they're from a scarcity perspective, because that's what you're afraid of. If you're a collector, you're afraid that they're going to find 10,000 more AF-15s in some box, right? That would crash the price. But once again, this is why blockchain is great. They publicly show you how many are created. You can look at the timestamp and date and understand that it was first, and it creates every piece of credibility is there, so it creates the collectability of it.
Yeah. And so here's one thing I'm just really interested in, because, and I know I've been holding you up here for already an hour and 15 minutes. So
No, this is great.
Okay. So we have like, the first appearances on the blockchain, right? Which we're also amazed about, like Miles Morales, woohoo, 250 editions, secret rare. And we're saying it's the FA. But then we look back at, Ultimate Fallout number 4, and I'm like, wait a second, that's technically first appearance at any medium there. Or Star Wars, we got the UR Vader FA, ooh, but Star Wars number 1 comic had technically the FA. Or even Hulk, came out in a, and again, I'm not going to use the word crappy like I used before, but came out in a comic before.
Are you calling Immortal Hulk 1 crap?
Well, it's $2, so other people are, but I'm not. I'm actually accumulating those because I'm like, well, despite what everybody thinks, this is technically, still significant in some component. But it's like, it's just amazing to me that, like, once something also has that value in the real world, it looks really cool how the whole perspective changes like dramatically.
Did you know that She-Hulk is also immortal?
Oh, there we go. I did not know that. So yeah.
There's this thing called the Green Door. Do you know what that is?
No, I'm sorry.
It's pretty cool in the lore of Hulk that was introduced in the Immortal Hulk series. I won't ruin it for people because I wonder if they'll bring it to the MCU, but it's kind of like how he gets his powers. It's very interesting. But anyways, okay, sorry.
That's cool.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I don't know, man. I literally, it's so crazy.
It is, because it's rewriting history, and that's what people, I think right now, they're too opposed to it. But when you look at like why things are so significant, like I think there's, you know what I mean?
Here's the thing about Immortal Hulk 1, which, not financial advice, don't go buy 50 of them.
Yeah.
Is that what will happen is they'll come out with Incredible Hulk 1.
I love that book, by the way. You have a version.
I have it over there. I have one over there.
Oh, I've got to see that after. Yeah.
Though there are not many in the world left. I think there's only like 1,400 all grades or something like that. Anyways,
I've got a 9.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great. Yeah, you got the facsimile. I have a facsimile too.
Actually, this is the real one. I'm just getting it. No, I'm joking.
Nice. It's a 9.8. That's going to be expensive. It's going to go whatever, but gangbusters, we don't know the mint size. The SR is going to be whatever, eventually go to, I don't know, whatever, 10,000 gems. Yeah. We don't know, right? It's going to be successful, but it will get out of reach. And then people are going to start looking. Right. And they're going to look for weird things. They'll obviously look for all the Hulk keys that we like, Hulk 3 and Hulk, all the different, whatever. They're going to get all the Hulks. There's only 6 in the first run. They'll get all those 6, and they'll, but eventually they'll say, wow, this one is interesting because it was the first one on the blockchain. Now it probably will only be, I'll make it up, 1/10 of the value of Incredible Hulk number 1, but I bet you it will eventually have some value.
Exactly. So that's how I see it too. I feel like there'd be fewer people, but like relatively speaking to where the price point is now, again, not financial advice, but I just think like, especially for the SR variant or something like that, like it's still significant, right? When you have the entire world of Hulk collectors in 10 years that are now, doing that stuff, right? And so here's another question for you now. So now we go back to OG collectibles. Like, so, we always say original gangster, like, and the reason that we all call them OG is just because when sleeping, but it's just because there were fewer around back in the day. And so the grails were different. It was the HQ19, it was the Golden Moogly, it was the Rizzo, Todd, the him, the Donnie. And, some of these now are like status symbols. And I would even say
Wasn't
like,
him like 10,000 at one point?
dude, it was crazy. It was I think I picked one up at the time for 2,999 gems, and I was flabbergasted I got it at that point. Yeah.
It's a pretty cool one, man.
It is cool, and it's a weird one, right? And I do think it'll be controversial in the future. And the thing about those collectibles to me is it signifies something. It signifies that you're either very early or that you have a ton of money and you don't give a shit. Because it's like, why would you in your right mind go buy like a cross-dressing like devil, right? When you can go for the same price and buy something like a partner statue. You know what I'm trying to say? So it's like, that's where I think it's going to be interesting, is that in the Veve verse, and that like that could all of a sudden now have, I don't know.
It's probably only season 1 though, I bet.
Yeah, I
The
think so.
season 1 stuff, I think, will probably eventually have a bunch of value, all of it, because you're right. Because initially, if you have, I'll make it up, 3,000 gems, you're probably not buying him and some of those season 1 things.
Yes.
But, once you get a bunch of the stuff and you're a whale, maybe you'll go after some of that stuff. There is, I think, see, having all of season 1 will be a status symbol. I agree with you 100%, because there's just not, how many people have all of season 1? Not many.
So not many. And one thing that
Maybe 100 people, you think? Well,
dude,
wait, is Donnie season 1?
Yeah. Yeah, Donnie was actually China locked as well. So at the point when it first dropped, nobody in the States could actually buy it. So what happened was is that they had to use it as only like one or two people, one of the few people in China at the time, or Asia, that had it, and they were selling them at like a really cheap price. And so the crazy part to that too is like, if you look at the sub 100 mints of the first season, you're going to find that they're either like astronomical in value or they don't exist. Like if you go look at all, and so like I think like a lot of these whales know that and are slowly just taking them off the market. And so I think, like you said, it kind of reminds me of like the gold age of comics, like how there's just like a lot of them have been beat up, they're not around, and they're just kind of non-existent, and that kind of is another reason for their they have scarcity, but another reason for their prowess.
That's an interesting thing, because a lot of the golden age comics, some of them are just, and I'm not an expert. I know enough to know about comics that the golden age of comics is a different world than I understand. I mean, I know some of them, but it's those people that collect A are really rich, and B, because it's not the characters that I grew up with. So I just don't understand a lot of what those comics are about. So I'm telling you right now, I'm an ignorant of the golden age. But I'll say this, that some of the golden age stuff may not be necessarily even that significant, which is to your point, but it's just golden age. So it's just valuable. It's exactly your point.
That's right. And it just speaks to this time in history where it's like you believed when nobody else did, in a sense. And it's the same thing with these comics. Like you collected them and tucked them away when nobody else cared, and it's like the same thing here. Is like, wow, you saw the vision earlier than I just think it's going to speak to a lot. And the other thing that I find interesting is the serial numbers, right? Because we know that they I think it was like 17 to 40 were sorry, I think Veve only took the first 16. So for a small period of time, number 17 to 40, I think it was up to like 4 or 5 months in. I think it was like October 2020 to like maybe just before I got there, like February or something. It was around that time they started to shift to 41. But all of those were just like, 0 to 7, 16 was the only ones Veve took. So you could technically get a 17 in the wild. And I really hope that they don't change that in the future, where they're going back to that, because they have so much. I know people are against me, but I think having that value, and like I know you have a few 41s, I would hate to see them go, oh, we're only taking the first 16 again, and then all of that value being diminished. So anyways, that's a few points there too.
No, it's great. It's interesting. It's such a, that I really like that, because of course, as a guy, as a collector, you're always trying to, quote unquote, see the future. You're trying to see what people will value in the future before they value it. I know that's really kind of the hallmark of this channel in a lot of ways. That's why I watch this channel, because you're trying to figure that out. Even some of your very first videos, You were trying to figure that out. You're a seeker of value, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah, I'm
And so I think
seeker.
you're right. I think you're 100% right. We might have to wait a while, just like, obviously the golden age comics, like some of those comics, we had to wait a while for those, for those to be valuable. But the interesting thing is, if it can be more mainstream, if Veve does become more mainstream, we've said this again and again and again, I recognize, but all of the mint sizes are way too low. And I will add this, is that because, a lot of the stuff, especially initially for comics, they were sold in the United States, but Veve is not just in the United States. We know this, right?
Yeah.
It's worldwide. And, I mean, there's a lot of people in the world.
Yeah, and there's a lot of poor people in the world, and this is where I get interested, because like you said it perfectly, like, if you're only having 500 editions of things on really like popular IP, how do you expect that somebody that's living off $1 a day to be like, oh, let me go buy something? So
No.
it's going to appeal to a small market, I think. Still, like, I think it'll be still niche, like similar to what you said earlier about, like, the baseball industry has 1 million dedicated, I think it's Danny DeBull said that, 1 million dedicated, really strong core users that can still propel cards to like millions of dollars. That's where I kind of see Veve going. Maybe it's more like 5 to 10, but it's a very kind of like niche collecting market with a lot of high rollers,
Yeah, I mean, there's always, and I said this about comics. I think there's probably about 100,000 comic book collectors, physical comic book collectors in the world.
Wow. Like serious ones.
Obviously it waxes and wanes. And the reason why I say that is because you look at some of the print runs of the big books now, Batman, Spider-Man, some of those, they're not printing 1 million copies. They're printing like 100,000, 150,000.
Yeah.
And they know that because a lot of collectors, what do? They stack, especially if it's Miles Morales #1, right? I think you have it behind you.
Yes.
You probably printed 150,000 of those. A bunch of people bought 2 or 3. Then they sold them out, right?
Right.
But they didn't print 500,000.
Right.
So I think that's why I say 100,000. I could be wrong.
No, I think
I'm somewhere in the right ballpark.
That's very smart.
So, and of course we do these calculations with Veve as well. But you're right. That is enough to run that entire industry. If we had 100,000 people in Veve, madness, right?
Insane.
So we really don't. And once again, we're pulling from all the countries. It's not like we're just pulling from Canada and the United States.
Right.
There's a lot of people that like Veve in Europe. There's a lot of people that like Veve in Australia. There's a lot of, New Zealand, right?
So this is really cool. So here's another freaking question that I'm really curious. Okay, so Pokemon cards, right? I look at like Charizard, right? You look at a first edition Shadowless Charizard PSA 9, one of them a Beckett 10, which is like the highest grade you can get. I think sold for like $21,000, right? Which is a huge drop from where it was in the bull market. And like a Beckett 10 a Beckett 10 PSA, a Beckett 10 first edition Shadowless Charizard would sell for over $1 million. There's only like 2 or 3 in existence. And the interesting thing to me is like the jump from the 9 to the 10. And it's so fascinating because on Veve we see the same kind of things happening. We look at AF15 UR, $1,000. All of a sudden the SR, only 250 editions less, 13,000. But when you look at it like logistically, it's still, the UR still 100 editions fewer than the Marvel 1 SR, right? And yet like it's a massive book. And so in your experience, like, is it purely that people are buying the 9.8 because it's just based off scarcity, or is it because it's like that top level and it like has that social capital piece that we talked about earlier?
It's the best.
Yeah.
If you have that kind of money, you want the best. And that's where it just jumps it to so whatever the highest is, maybe it's a 9.6, it doesn't matter. I'll make it up. I love, whatever Wolverine. So I'm going to try and find that. I think there's only one. Hulk 181 9.9.
Wow.
Which I don't even know what it would sell for. I don't know where it. No, it doesn't exist. We don't know, right? It's the best. Now the 9.8s obviously go for a crap ton as well. But yeah, it's always, in my mind, it's always the best. That's why you're paying a premium for the highest grade available.
Exactly. So, and then when we look at that same analysis and we put it into Veve, okay, so now we go, okay, you've got the UR Vader, congrats, it's the highest tier to that. Oh, you got the low mint. That's amazing. Oh, wait a second. You have a 1977 mint that's representative of the, so that's pretty simple. But it is interesting because a lot of people always ask me that, like, why is it the UR or the one underneath? And I'm like, this isn't just like something that's a phenomenon on Veve. Like, this is like
Right.
a worldwide concept, right? That the best
And
of
it's
the best.
exponential. It's not like this is 2 times this and this is 3 times this. It's like this is 2 times this, 2 times this, and this is now 10 times the floor or
Right.
more for that top tier, especially if it's scarce. I mean, Miles is the best example of that. I only know the numbers so we can look at it. So Miles, the rare is like around I'll just say 400 gems. The ultra rare is around 700 gems, and then the SR is like a 10K.
Yeah.
So it's that exponential jump for the really scarce and highest graded version of it.
Right. And when I look at that Amazing Fantasy 15 in the background there, that's, I think, I remember actually I watched the video when you got that. So that was so amazing. Congrats to you on that. But what was your number one reason for buying that? Was that because you're kind of like, you know what, I've got this YouTube channel and it's going to be a great flex piece, or was this like a lifelong dream, or maybe it was a mix of both those things, or a lot more to it? Like, what was like the major chase there that got you to get that book?
It wasn't the YouTube channel, although I did put it, I did make a video and stuff like that. It was, I just wanted to get one and all these kind of like really crazy books. And I just put it off and put it off and put it off because it's a bunch of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what was the impetus of it. Things are running away. There was some big sale. I can't remember. It wasn't AF-15. It was a different book. Can't remember what it was. It sold for a ton and they were just running away. And I was like, if I don't buy these books right now, little did I know that 2 years later they'd crash and I'd be able to buy them all for less, but whatever. I felt like they were going to get out of reach for me, maybe not for other people we know. Right. But for me, they were going to get out of reach. So I talked to my wife about it and I just went and did it. So like it was like 2-week period. I bought X-Men 1. I bought AF-15. I bought Incredible Hulk 1. I bought.
Oh, now I'm getting excited.
Just because since it was. So I bought, giant size, we just saw this one, right? So he's
that's
not,
gorgeous.
So I bought a bunch of big books. I mean, these are, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to as a comic collector, I wanted to get them. And so not that I won't ever sell them, but I probably will, because I don't think my family doesn't want to try and sell all this crap once I'm dead, right? But it's fun to have. And then of course it's great for my channel as well.
So this is where I'm fascinated, because I think that same philosophy applies to the digital collecting space. Right? If you want to make it and there's grail items, then you're going to want to have one of those things to solidify your position as like a digital collector, because without it, you may never have the opportunity to have those big items. And I think just owning it, and this is where like the collectors at heart thing, as much as I did initially not like it, I was like, no, like, we're crypto guys, like we want big money in here, and collectors at heart, nobody's gonna be spending 100,000 and then saying hashtag collectors at heart. But I was like, you know what, I think there's actually a sense of ownership here that it's not necessarily explainable yet, but I do think that like there's some things I don't really see it as like a flipping opportunity, like you said earlier about like Silver Surfer. Like, I actually want to own it, despite it being like an investment. I would still probably hold on to it if it went down in value. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a few items
I
like
always
that
try to buy two. The one is to flip and the one is to keep, like David, you said, right? I think I definitely do that. I buy as much as possible duplicates when I can. And I couldn't buy duplicates of my AF-15, right? But I can't remember. There's this YouTube. I just thought there's this guy. I can't remember. He had like 11 AF-15s or something like that.
Wow.
And he sold them all to buy. I think he bought an Action Comics #1.
Oh,
so, but whatever. Anyways, yeah, that's craziness, right? But no, I mean it is this, and collecting is a weird thing, right? It also is weird. Like once you own it for a long time, then you're just like, I don't really care. I've had it. There's a lot of weird psychology around collecting that I probably don't even understand myself.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I think, is a part of people who uh, have nostalgia for different things that are different IP that has been meaningful to them throughout their life.
Nice.
And so whether it be comics, whether it be movies, you go to
Mm.
movies and you're like, this is a great movie. I love this movie. I saw it with a friend of mine, or it shocked me when I saw it, or whatever. It had made an impression upon. Maybe you've seen it 25 times or whatever. You know what I mean? I think, you know, I think having a piece of that is cool. It's somehow just fun. Not everybody obviously doesn't speak to, but definitely it does to me. So, I mean, like, for example, I love the movie The Matrix,
Mm.
right? So, um, it'd be fun to get, like, I don't have it, but it'd be fun to get, like, you know, Keanu Reeves, like, sunglasses from the movie Signed or something. I don't even know if that's possible. I mean, it'd be, these are crazy things. But that's why people pay so much money for Han Solo's gun from the first, Star Wars movie, Episode 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
I
movie
got
was
you.
super meaningful to them, and that's cool, or whatever it might be.
Really cool. And I think there's only been, I don't know if you have that same feeling, but there's only been a few times in my life where I've actually bought something and I got a kick that it's actually inexplainable. It's like a feeling of like nostalgia, and it's like, just a massive dopamine hit, and it's like it gives you like this thing that you've only maybe experienced like 2 or 3 times in your life. And that's how I felt like a few times. Like I felt when I
So,
first got
what's your
yeah.
favorite movie? Do you have some favorite movies?
I do. Yeah, like I would definitely say like Lord of the Rings is like
Oh,
one of
yeah.
those,
Oh,
you know?
amazing, right?
Yeah.
So if you could get, like, they do have them, like, like Frodo's sword,
Oh
Sting
my
or
god.
whatever, which is actually whatever Bilbo Baggins' sword, but whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
They have replicas of it. You got one signed. It would be fun, right? If you like that movie a lot, it's cool. I just made that up, by the way.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that's how I've, and then, contrastingly, like even on Vivi, when I first got like the partner statue, like that hit me like it did like when I was a kid, because I put in augmented reality and I was like thinking to myself, holy shit, when I started thinking about like the magnitude of what it meant, I was like, first Disney NFT, it's Walt Disney who created like the world of
Everything.
magic and animation, and then Mickey Mouse. And I was like, oh my God, and there's only 4,333, and it's gold. And I like put the Disney soundtrack to it. And then I was like, whoa, like this is really something. And I own a piece of it. And I think that's where I was like, okay. And again, people are gonna flood and say, well, you don't own anything on TV, but yeah, I just think it's interesting. And one thing I do wish, which I think you're great at, is I wish we had more people talking about the fandom. Like VV Magic is a perfect example. Somebody's
Yeah,
out
she's great.
there, right? I'm more like you said, trying to pioneer and understand like what things are going to be significant. You have your whole comic book expertise and you're an entrepreneur, so you bring a lot of different angles. But I do love that the fact that you also know the IP, and that's what I wish we had more of, is like people that were just obsessed with the IP and what those different characters meant and what comic books they were from, and like, you know what I mean, instead of just talking about the value.
I think but I mean, maybe could do more of that. I think My Collectibles does some of that too.
He's good at that
Various
too.
people do, and
Yeah.
and that's what makes all the different YouTubers and Twitter Space people uh, great, because we all come at it from a different angle, different experience. I do think it does, though, come down to that person. Like, if
Mm.
you were a person, so most of the people that I've met, not all, but a lot of the people in VV are relatively or much younger than me, but they're in their 30s, 20s, 30s. They didn't read comics.
Mm.
They but they have an experience with the MCU movies.
Mm.
And although the last couple years of them have not been very good,
Yeah.
the previous, 10 years were great. And, Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther, Iron Man, of course, they love these characters, they love these stories. And so those are meaningful to them. And I think that's why some of these comics, I think without the MCU, these comics don't do very well.
I totally agree, right? It's like changing the course of history as we speak with the new movie iterations. And listen, I know we've been talking for a long time, but I guess one of my last, questions for you are just on the future of Marvel, because right now we have these characters, Superman and all these things that have been there, that's DC rather, but like, what I'm trying to say, like Iron Man, etc., that have all been here forever, and they've never really seen a jump. You've seen a lot of stories come out, and it's like, Batman does this, Superman does that, and people are like, okay, but like the new kids, especially with the world being a lot more, focused around EDI, accessibility, inclusivity, etc. These new heroes are taking over, like Miles Morales, or like Spider Gwen, or any other, like Santa Starro, as I even saw in Star Wars. Like, and so do you think that like Marvel is trying to not necessarily like phase out older characters, but start like a new wave of characters that would like super almost like take those positions, like almost like a son taking over a father's role?
It's tough.
Okay.
I mean, they are constantly trying in the comics, right? Because they can only say, because Spider-Man sells well, but Captain America doesn't sell that well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The comic at least. Sometimes it does when something happens, but for the most part, it doesn't. And so they're constantly trying to invent new storylines, invent new characters, invent new bad guys, and I don't know what you would want to call it, but 90% of them don't work out. They kind of shove them in as much as they can and do all these different types of things, but most of them don't really catch fire. And when they do, of course, it's just like, oh my, they're loving life, and then they take them, they ride them for as long as they can. Now, I think some of them have just been around for so long, like Spider-Man, but like some of them are not as big as the MCU is. Like Iron Man wasn't that big. Still doesn't sell that well.
Right.
Guardians of the Galaxy is not a comic that sells well and was not a big character in the, so I think that in the movies, it's the same. They have all these characters and they are trying to see which ones are going to work and not work. So we saw, and I think what they need to determine is they can't just force it. So, like, for example, we saw America Chavez in Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
We saw Kamala Khan, or Ms. Marvel. She had her own TV show last summer. We've seen Cassie Lang in the latest. I'm talking about, these are the Young Avengers, new characters, and they're good, not good. We don't know. The verdict's still out on some of them. Okay. Whereas here's a character they introduced, they weren't sure, but ended up being great, which would be, let's back it up. So they did introduce Black Panther in Winter Soldier. No, I'm sorry, in Civil War. So Captain America 3. He was awesome. So I'm sure that's what greenlit them to do Black Panther's solo movie. Now, if he somehow didn't work in that movie, maybe they don't. Maybe he's not as big. It doesn't, you know what I mean?
Yes.
He's not a biggest player. I also think they need to, read the room in terms of people didn't like the Eternals. For them to take the Eternals and just force them into every single movie, I think would be a bad idea. People did like Shang-Chi. So there's one where they did kind of, they can do something. They can probably push that character a little bit more. So I think they just need to continue to introduce characters here and there, see if they resonate with the audience, and then really push hard on them. Because obviously they've done a lot of movies where they just have that exclusive group introduced. So for example, Guardians of the Galaxy, they introduced it. Nobody knew who they were. How are you going to make a movie that's some of the main characters are a raccoon and a tree, and there's this green lady? I mean, it sounds almost impossible, right?
Yeah.
It could have bombed. And then that would be probably it for Guardians of the Galaxy, or should have been. They shouldn't just keep shoehorning it, right? So I think they just got to read the room. So, like, for example, another one, if you saw Black Panther 2, is Riri Williams, they introduced. People liked her, didn't like her. It's the verdict's out still. So I think that's the way to do it. But of course, I think it's really rough. Trying to find another Tony Stark and another Captain America is killing the MCU. They cannot find them.
Wow. And do you think that's where it's like Miles Morales has a chance, I guess? Because,
well, certainly they took a chance on Tom Holland.
Yeah.
And he has worked out very well for them as Spider-Man, right?
Yes.
But you never know, right? And of course, Miles Morales, from the perspective of the animation, has worked out well for them. Hopefully this new movie is good, the one that's coming out this summer. you know, there's every rumor under the sun that they're going to bring Miles Morales into live action.
Yeah.
They need to select the actor. They need to, you know,
And it
there
needs to be the
is
right
going to be
actor.
so much pressure for them to hit
Yeah.
a home run with that. I don't, you know, I wouldn't want to be that actor, and I wouldn't want to be the person writing the, you know, writing the script.
No kidding. No kidding. Hey, well, Sleeping Comics, everyone. Thank you, my man, for being here today. Like I said, I feel like we could have just kept talking and talking, but I realized that, you know, people only have so much time in their day, and I know you're a super busy guy too. And you know, I just want to thank you for not only your, you know, your expertise, your wisdom, you know, just the way that you kind of dissect things, and we start to piece it out, and we're like, okay, what does this all mean? I felt like it was a really fun, you know, conversation. I felt like we got somewhere too, you know. So
I appreciate. No, it's great. I appreciate your, you know, your interviews are so, you've gotten, you were good before, but you're just you know, much every level you're just stepping out. Lots of great different people that you're inviting on, and I've enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.